It started as a casual conversation over dinner. My fiancée, Aisha, was scrolling through her phone with a mischievous glint in her eyes. "I want to prove something to you," she said suddenly, her voice playful but edged with curiosity. "I want to show you that you have nothing to worry about. I'm going to take you to meet someone from my past." I raised an eyebrow. "Someone from your past?" I asked cautiously, sensing that the playful tone hid something. "Yes," she said, leaning closer. "My ex, Imran. I just want you to see that you have absolutely nothing to fear. That I'm yours, and you're secure. No jealousy, no insecurity. Are you up for it?" I nodded, trying to hide the flicker of unease rising in my chest. After all, I trusted her, or at least, I wanted to. But there was something in her eyes, a spark I couldn't quite place, that made my stomach tighten. The next evening, she insisted on taking me to a quiet cafe downtown. The moment we entered, she spotted him. Imran, tall, confident, his grin easy and practiced. She waved him over, and I followed silently, heart pounding. As introductions were made, she practically beamed, proudly announcing, "This is my fiancé. I want you to meet him, just to show there's nothing to worry about." I smiled politely, though inside, a storm was brewing. She kept glancing at me, as if trying to gauge my reaction, waiting for me to be flustered, to show a hint of jealousy. But I remained calm, sip of coffee in hand, keeping my composure. For a while, small talk flowed. The conversation was pleasant, harmless. And I felt a growing sense of relief. I wasn't reacting emotionally, and perhaps she would be satisfied that her little test was working. But then, just as I began to relax, he leaned back in his chair and said something that froze me in place. "You know," he said casually, looking at her, "I always wondered why you'd settle for someone like him." The words hit like a punch. The casual delivery, the subtle judgment, the implication, it all crashed into me at once. I looked at Aisha, expecting to see discomfort, maybe even embarrassment. But instead, she laughed, a light, almost delighted laugh, as if this was some inside joke I wasn't privy to. I kept my composure, though every instinct screamed at me to confront them, to demand answers. But I had learned something crucial: patience can be more powerful than confrontation. I calmly took a sip of my coffee and said nothing, letting the weight of his words, and the implication of her laughter, sink into the space between us. That night, on the ride home, the tension was thick. I didn't speak immediately. I let her talk, asking questions about the cafe, the conversation, the weather, anything mundane, to see if she would slip, to see if her excitement at showing me she was loyal would reveal more than she intended. And she did. Small things, at first. The way she glanced at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, the faint smile when Imran texted something quickly across the table. The tiny hesitation before answering questions about past relationships. Piece by piece, the puzzle started forming in my mind, and the picture wasn't pretty. I didn't explode. I didn't accuse. I didn't cry. I waited. I observed. And then, later that night, when she was asleep, I checked her phone. It wasn't difficult, she trusted me implicitly, or at least assumed she did. And there it was, messages that made my blood run cold. Flirtations, secret meetings, inside jokes that weren't meant for me, plans she had hidden carefully. It was subtle, but the pattern was unmistakable. I knew I had two choices: confront her now in anger, or let her realize the weight of her actions quietly, without dramatic words, without arguments. I chose the latter. The next day, I didn't mention the cafe, the ex, or the messages. I went about my life calmly, subtly shifting our plans, watching her reactions, noticing her discomfort as I remained composed. She began to pick up on the tension, small questions, awkward glances, the way she hesitated before speaking. And I realized the power of silence. A few days later, I sat her down. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I simply handed her a printout of her own messages, carefully documented. Her eyes widened in disbelief, the playful, confident woman who had dragged me to meet her ex now frozen, trying to grasp the reality of what she had been hiding. "I wanted you to prove I wasn't jealous," she whispered, voice trembling. "And you did," I said softly. "You proved exactly how much you underestimated me." Her face fell, the laughter gone, replaced with shock and regret. She had tested me, tried to flaunt her freedom, to show me her loyalty with a meet and greet, and instead, the truth had been revealed. Her ex's careless words had only cracked open the door. I had merely watched and waited. By the end of the conversation, there were no tears of reconciliation, no promises of change, just the quiet acknowledgement that the foundation she thought was secure was completely exposed. I realized then that the most devastating moments aren't always loud. Sometimes, they arrive subtly, in a comment, a glance, or, in this case, a simple sentence from someone she thought was harmless. "I always wondered why you'd settle for someone like him." Her ex's words had been casual, but the impact was profound. And in that silence that followed, the stunned, regretful pause, the realization of exposure, I understood that betrayal doesn't need confrontation to hurt. Observation, patience, and quiet revelation can deliver a truth far more powerful than any shouting match ever could. And as she sat there, frozen, unable to look me in the eyes, I knew that the lesson had been delivered. Sometimes, the shock comes not from what you do, but from what you let them reveal themselves.